What if I told you you don't need serger to sew knit fabrics? Let me show you how. Hello darlings, this is Julie and welcome to my channel where we talk everything sewing. In today's video we will be making this gorgeous asymmetrical fitted dress, which I'm also wearing right now. I will show you how to make a pattern and also assemble this dress. I wanted to add a little bit of a challenge, so this entire dress is assembled only using straight stitch and standard sewing machine, no serger. I get asked a lot how to sew knit fabrics without serger, and the secret is in this little thread. This thread is Mettler SERACYCLE elastic thread, which allows you to sew elastic seams without serger. Mettler is also the sponsor of the video. During the video, I will be using Mettler SERACYCLE thread to sew this dress with my industrial straight stitch machine, and you can use the same technique on any kind of sewing machine that you have, as long as you're using appropriate thread. During the video, I will tell you a little bit more about this thread, but this is one of the threads that I highly recommend having in your thread collection because it's so easy to sew knit fabrics using this thread, and I genuinely have a lot of colors of this thread because I just love using it. To create this dress, you will need a basic dartless block, and if you don't have one already, I will link down in the description box my tutorial how you can create your own pattern block. Also in the description box you will find the breakdown of each technique that I'm using in the video in case you want to jump into a certain video part. So now let's start creating our dress. This pattern will be done in two stages. First we will do adjustments on the paper and then we will finish our pattern straight on the fabric. So I'm starting with my dartless basic block and I take the front piece. Because our dress will be asymmetrical at the top, I want to do a little bit of contouring at the side, so I will just narrow down a little bit the side of the dress just below under armpit. I will also deepen the armhole by 1.5 centimeters. And now I have this new contour line. Next I will take my ruler and I will do a diagonal line, which will be the neckline of my dress. At the shoulder line, I'm making sure that the neckline meets the shoulder at the 90-degree angle. So right here I'm creating a little bit of a curve. After these adjustments, the top part of my neckline is finished. For this part, I also want to narrow down a little bit the bottom of the dress just because I want a more fitted silhouette. So I'm narrowing down the bottom of the dress by 5 centimeters and I'm connecting with the hip point. Now I have this nice new curve. Now I will take the back pattern piece and I will repeat exact same adjustments that I did to the front part, and I will make them to the back part as well. Now this next step is where the things get interesting. First I want you to measure both sides of the dress and also the shoulders and armhole length. This way, once we start doing our gathering, we will know exact measurements we need to gather our fabric to. I want you to take the front part of the dress and I want you to mark several lines. These will be our slash lines. We will cut through them and we will be spreading them and adding volume to our dress. You want to mark about 12 to 15 lines, and I will also mark them just so that when I cut them out, I will know for a fact which place needs to go where. Once I finish marking my front pattern piece, I will also do the same markings on the back pattern piece and I will set them aside, and in the meantime I will do my sleeve pattern. Just as with bodice piece, we will also mark slash lines on the sleeve as well. These will be the markings where we cut the pattern piece and we will be spreading it to add volume and gathers. Once it's done, I will also number each piece so that I know which piece goes where. Now take all pattern pieces and let's meet at fabric. I will finish my pattern on the fabric, so I have placed the fabric on the floor because it's the biggest surface that I have, and the fabric is on single layer because the pattern is asymmetrical. Now I put the pattern on top and I have cut through every single slash line. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to spread the pattern pieces, and this will give the volume and will allow us to create gathers in the later steps. Now it's up for you how much you want to spread the pattern. The more you spread, the more gathers you will have. In my case, because I'm working with very thin fabric, I am doing the double, so I'm almost doubling the fabric original length. Once I spread the pattern, I will draw around each detail side and I will remove the pattern. Next, I will connect and blend each line to create a nice, beautiful side lines. Once this step is finished, I will cut around the pattern piece and the front part of the dress is ready, and I will do exactly the same with the back piece. Once the front and back pieces are cut, it's time to do the same with the sleeve. So again, I'm cutting on single fold and I will need only one sleeve. So this time I have also cut through each slash line and I'm spreading the pattern piece and I'm drawing around it, and I'm again blending the sides to create a nice single line, and I will be cutting my pattern, and this is how the cut pattern sleeve looks. Now before moving to the sewing machine, I will cut several straps of fabric from the horizontal fabric. So the thickness of the strap should be around 2.5–3 centimeters. Once you have these straps cut, it's time to move to the sewing machine. If you're enjoying the video so far, I would appreciate if you would hit the like button so that more people can discover this video and learn more about pattern making and sewing. Thank you very much, and let's continue creating our dress. The first thing we will do at the sewing machine is to create gathers. To do that, you don't need an elastic thread. You can use standard all-purpose thread, but you need to have jersey needle installed. To start, leave long thread tails. Set machine to longest straight stitch. In my machine, it's 5mm stitch. Start sewing at the side of the dress about 5mm from the edge. Do not secure the beginning of the seam. At the end of the seam, leave long thread tails and do not secure the seam. Here's how the seam looks so far. I'm using contrasting thread because I will later remove this seam and it will be easier to find the seam I need to remove. Next, I make a second seam parallel to first one, about 1 centimeter from the edge. Again, do not secure neither the start nor the end of the seam and leave long thread tails in both the beginning and the end of the seam. Once you made the seam, holding both thread tails at once, you will be able to neatly gather the fabric like this. Before gathering the fabric, repeat this step with all sides of the dress, the shoulder, the armhole, and around the sleeve sides and cap. Once you made long stitches around these parts, let's move back to the floor. At the floor, I'm starting to pull threads and form gathers. I'm gathering the fabric to the measure I marked before cutting the pattern. I'm gathering both sides, shoulder, and armhole. This is how front piece looks gathered, and now I will gather the back piece. Once front and back pieces are gathered, I carefully put them right sides together and pin sides and shoulders together. I set the bodice piece aside and I will repeat same steps with the sleeve. I gather the sides and the cap of the sleeve. Once done, I'll fold the sleeve in half, right sides together, and pin along the long edge. Once this is done, I'm heading back to the sewing machine. At the sewing machine, we will start sewing our dress and we will be using Mettler SERACYCLE thread. This thread is highly elastic and it will allow us to create elastic seam on stretchy fabrics. The secret is in special SERACYCLE thread composition. Raw material PTT allows the sewing thread to stretch up to 65%. This is why the thread is perfect for sewing straight stitches on knit fabrics. For comparison, I have Mettler Metrocen all-purpose thread, which is the most popular type of sewing thread. When I'm stretching this all-purpose thread, it does not elongate by much, which is great when sewing woven fabrics. Now when I stretch Mettler SERACYCLE thread, it does elongate by a lot, and you can achieve sewing elasticity that is twice as high as that of conventional sewing thread. This thread should be used in both needle and bobbin thread. And for best effect, you need to reduce thread tension so that the thread is not pre-stretched before sewing. SERACYCLE is available in 72 colors, and it can be used for sewing women's, men's or children's clothing, for sportswear and outerwear, as well as for underwear and lingerie. To assemble my dress, I'm threading my machine with Mettler SERACYCLE thread, and I'll be using this thread both as top and bobbin thread. I'm reducing the thread tension, and I'll be sewing with medium length stitch, which is 3 mm. First, I take the side of the dress and place fabric strap on top of the seam allowance. I'm sewing along the edge of the dress, locking those gathers in place. This is how the seam looks after this step. Now I'll remove long stitches which we used for gathering. These stitches will be very easy to remove since we use long stitch and contrasting color thread. Next, take loose edge of the strap and fold it, hugging the gathers. Secure with base stitch. Once you've done this step, sew the seam, locking that folded strap in place, and remove the base stitch. This method will give secure and very clean looking finish to the seam, while SERACYCLE thread will ensure that the seam stays elastic. Repeat the same step with both sides of the dress and shoulder, as well as the long edge of the sleeve. By the way, if you have a foot like this one, you can use this for this step, and it will be much quicker since you will be able to install the tape in just one step. I know not everyone has a foot like this, so I wanted to show full method, but if you do have a foot like this will make the step much easier. After the sides, shoulder and sleeve edge are sewn, I'll install the sleeve. Be very careful when pinning the sleeve in place since those gathers are very fragile at this point. Once the sleeve is pinned to place, sew using tape as before. Next we will finish the neckline. For the neckline, take fabric strap and put it on top of the neckline, right sides together. Start sewing at seam allowance line. Once you've sewn all around the neckline, finish by trimming the strap seam allowance and sewing both ends together. Now unfold the tape, push all seam allowance to the strap side and top stitch about 1 mm from the seam line. Sew all around the neckline. This is how top stitch strap looks like. Trim seam allowance. Fold the strap like this and using base stitch, attach it to the bodice of the dress. Sew all around the neckline 1 mm from strap edge. This is how your neckline finish looks from the inside and outside of the garment. This is a very clean and durable finish, and only one seam is visible from the outside. Now for the final step, we will hem the skirt bottom and sleeve end. Take hem and fold it twice like this. Secure with base stitch. Sew with straight stitch 1 mm from the edge. Sew all around the hem. Remove base stitch, and this is how your hem looks, very beautiful and fully elastic. Repeat the same method with sleeve bottom and give your dress final press. And here is my dress. I love how it turned out. It's so beautiful and very elegant and classy, and we didn't use Serger to make it. Thank you for watching today's video, and I will see you next time. Bye!